So, what's the most and the least amount of money that you've made as a per diem nurse?
For a year or for a month?
Ooh, let's do both. Let's do both. So, do you make more as a per diem nurse than you made as a staff nurse?
100%.
Can new grad nurses be per diem nurses?
I would not recommend it.
Interview that
Oh,
had the girls very, very mad, very, very upset. It caused a war online. On the American Income interview, when you talked about being a per diem nurse and making 300,000 in a year. So, what do you think made people so upset? And what do you feel like is the real reason that people were mad, like down deep down? Hey, y'all, welcome to the West T podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about per diem nursing, one of the best ways that you can be a nurse that gives you the amazing flexibility, the pay, which you deserve. And it just offers so many opportunities to be able to work on demand when you want and get the best pay that you possibly can as a nurse. So we have Lovely here, who is an expert and has been a per diem nurse for years. So she's going to talk to us about everything per diem nursing. And baby, we got a whole lot of tea to spill. So stay with us. So, what is a per diem nurse? Like, what is the education and training that's required to get to where you are? And what's the difference between being a per diem nurse and a full time nurse?
So basically what per diem means, it's synonymous with PRN. So PRN stands for pro rata, which is Latin for as needed. So it's not necessarily synonymous with the healthcare field. It's more like an employment classification. So there's like part-time, full-time, and there's per diem or as needed. So all you're saying is to either the hospital or third-party agencies is, hey, I'm a nurse. I don't necessarily want to work at this hospital. So in exchange for benefits, I am going to get higher pay, but I'll tell you when I want to work and you let me know when you need me. So as far as the education is concerned, any nurse can be a per diem nurse. You can have an ADN, you can have a BSN, you can have an MSN. It doesn't matter what the letters are behind your name or whatever certifications you have. You can just go to your HR or you can pick up an agency and say, hey, I just want to be a per diem nurse. So there's not really much as far as education. As long as you have 2 years of experience in your specialty, you're ready to go.
Right. Okay. So can new grad nurses be per diem nurses?
I would not recommend it. Only because per diem nursing can go two ways. First and foremost, when you start your per diem job, 7 times out of 10, you're not getting any orientation. They're literally just gonna throw you on the floor. They won't tell you anything. 9 times out of 10, they won't give you a briefing on what the charting system is like. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
Epic, Meditech, there's 10 million of them out there. So if you're not familiar with them, they're not gonna stop and say, hey, do you need help? Can I hold your hand? Do you need anything? They're
Yeah.
literally just gonna cut the umbilical cord and say, hey, we'll see you in another 12 hours.
Yeah.
So I definitely wouldn't recommend a new grad to work as a per diem nurse. I would say get at least 2 years of experience, know your stuff, know the toughest cases that you can get in that specialty, and then run with per diem nursing.
Because I think also as per diem, a lot of nurses will come in with the attitude like when you're going to someone else's institution, they feel like, oh, well, you're getting paid the most. So I'm going to give you the hardest patients and the hardest, heaviest assignment. And I don't think a lot of new grads realize, I mean, a lot of them might feel dumped on already because they're already taking like insane ratios and things like that, but they also still have help.
Mhm.
So when you're per diem, no one is helping you. They're literally just throwing you in the water and it's either sink or swim.
Yes, yes. Either that or they will give you the easiest assignments because they don't know you very well.
Yeah.
They're not really well versed in how your nursing is. So
Yeah.
they would either give you the easiest patient on the floor, the walkie-talkies, or the train wrecks.
Yeah, yeah. So, what's the most and the least amount of money that you've made as a per diem nurse?
For a year or for a month?
Ooh, let's do both. Let's do both.
The most I've made in a year, which was last year of 2023, I made 300K, a little over 300K for the year. I went hard. I took the highest paying assignments. I did all the OT. The shift, I got it. That's me. I took everything that I could. I was cherry picking all 2023.
Oh my god.
And I think the least that I made was in 2022 when I first came out to California because I didn't have the resources. I didn't
Yeah.
have the connects, the networks. So I think I made a little over 100,000. But then throughout the year of 2022, I decided to like talk to people. I talked to nurses. You know, when your net worth grows, when your network grows, your net worth grows.
Hmm.
So that's when in 2023 when I hit the 300K. The most that I've made in a month could be anywhere between 20 to 25,000. It just depends on again how many shifts I'm working, the quality of the shifts, and how much I'm getting paid in those 12 hours.
Okay. So, do you make more as a per diem nurse than you made as a staff nurse?
100%. When I was a staff nurse, and this was between 2017 to 2020, I was making anywhere between 2,000 to 2,500 every 2 weeks,
Okay.
which is not bad as a staff nurse. This was in South Florida, so it's not that bad of a pay. But now I'm doing 5, 6K a week, so it's a huge difference.
So you did an interview that had the girls very, very mad, very, very upset. It caused a war online. On the American Income interview, when you talked about being a per diem nurse and making 300,000 a year. So what do you think made people so upset? And what do you feel like is the real reason that people were mad, like down deep down?
I think it was a mixture of 2 things. I think the first thing was self-limiting beliefs because I think other nurses feel like, well, they're probably not worthy of making that much, or they probably can't think that they can make that much, which ties into my next point is the environment. Because I know I'm just stemming back from when I was a staff nurse. Not a lot of nurses around me worked OT. So it
Mm,
kind of made me fall into that. Let me just do my 3 days and dip. But then now that I'm in California, I'm working with hustlers.
yeah.
So that was where I was like, oh, there's OT. Okay, you're working it. So I'm gonna work it too. So that was kind of catapulting my income to a different threshold. So I think it's just a mixture between they don't think they can do it or they don't know how to do it. So I think
Yeah.
those are 2 things.
So American Income, just for you guys who are watching, American Income is basically an interview style where people are interviewed on the street. They're asked about how much they're making, what they do, and it really has a goal to increase pay transparency overall. So that's the goal too with this podcast, especially for women of color, and people of color in general, to make sure that we are getting the pay that we deserve. So I really encourage you, like for everyone watching this isn't the only podcast that talks about this. Make sure that you are making what you deserve. And this is a great place to start, but it's so important to just know what the market looks like and know what everyone else is getting paid because you see the outrage that came out when people said that, oh my God, she's making 300,000. Like it's something wrong with making good money when you're in a different state. And we all know California pays very differently.
Very well.
California pay is totally different. There's different pay structures, the different rules with overtime and how nurses are paid. So I just love it.
So do I.
So how long have you been a per diem nurse?
I have been a per diem nurse since 2022, and this was
Wow.
towards the tail end of COVID when I was like, I didn't wanna go back home, I didn't wanna go back to staff, so it was literally a one phone call that changed my whole life. My best friend said, "Hey, there's some
Mhm.
agencies in California, you don't even have to work at the hospital to be an employee, you can just credential with these agencies and they can just place you at different hospitals that need help on a daily basis."
Okay, so is California the only state that you've done per diem in?
Yes.
Okay. Would you recommend even going to another state? Because I mean, some states like Oregon and even like Washington pay really well. So what's the reason that you chose California, and why do you think the other people should like only possibly look at California?
The reason being was because at the very tail end of the pandemic run,
Mhm.
my very last assignment was in Bakersfield. So it was in California. So I was already familiar with
And Northern
Cali.
Cal.
Yeah, Queen, that's the real tea.
Mhm.
But I was already in Southern California and I love the area and I said, I don't want to leave. So I just ended up transitioning. I bought literally a one-way ticket and never left.
Wow. Okay. So California is the best. What are the red flags and the green flags that you've seen as far as different companies? Are there any companies that you feel like you would recommend? Companies you would say stay away from? Because you know that right now, too, we're not talking about travel nursing on this episode, but two huge travel nurse companies are doing a merger. And I'm just gonna say, when stuff like that happens, the pay is going down for travel. So, like for me, per diem is really where the money is.
I agree. It's kind of a hit or miss because there's one particular company that I worked with the most last year that made me the 300K.
Hmm.
But I've seen that Aya is actually infiltrating in their territories and are dropping the rates down significantly. So, that was a little bit of a blow as far as that company is concerned. But I would definitely say just to keep your options open.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily go with the big names. I usually like to say go with a lower mom and pop
Yeah.
agencies because they'll take better care of you. You'll have recruiters that actually know your name.
Hmm.
They'll establish relationships with you, and they'll actually give you perks if you just ask for it. You just got to open your mouth and just ask for it.
Mm. So, do you have an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree?
The bachelors.
For people that you've worked with who have an associate's degree, have you seen any like barriers with them getting a job
No,
in per
absolutely
diem?
not.
No, people don't care. If you have an associate's or a bachelor's, you can get a per diem job.
It depends on the facility. If it's a
Okay.
magnet facility, They will require a bachelor's.
Okay, okay. And they would you think that they are paying for they ain't paying
There's
for it.
no difference.
Okay. Okay. Um, okay, there's been a lot of changes to per diem nurse. The girls are knowing our secrets. Before this podcast, the girls know our secrets. And they definitely know that people like my old roommate lives in Atlanta and works in Cali. And I think a lot of people are doing that where they live in low cost states
Yes.
and they live in places like Atlanta where they or New York
Mhm.
sometimes where they can get a one-way flight
Mhm.
and they can, do what they need to work and then, leave.
Literally.
So do you feel like the changes are coming because of that or like what? And what do you feel like the trend going forward of per diem nursing is gonna be?
100% we're doing the across state lines. I actually have a community where I teach other nurses how to duplicate their expenses effortlessly
Dope.
because I live in South Florida and I work in California. So that way I'm duplicating my expenses, so to speak.
Yeah.
So what I teach them is to budget very, very well. You have to be somewhat of a good budgeter
Hmm.
because, of course, you're paying two rents or two mortgages depending on how you decide to play it.
Yeah.
But it's very important to also keep in mind that you're strategically picking jobs that are paying above average. So that way, at the end of the month, when you are balancing out your expenses, you're not in the red. But
Yeah.
I definitely think that going across state because of the higher pay, they want to take advantage of competitive pay.
Yes. Yes. So, okay, would you ever go back to being full time? Why or why not?
2 years ago, the answer would have been no, but now actually, because I'm migrating to Northern California, I don't have the network out there, so I'm gonna have to start somewhere.
Yes.
So they won't allow me to just jump straight into PRN. I'm gonna have to do either full time or part time, and then after
Okay.
6 months, transition.
Okay. And what specialty do you work in?
ICU.
Okay. So do you feel like of course, different specialties have different marketability
Correct.
when it comes to per diem.
Correct.
Do you feel like ICU is the best? And if you could have a second specialty and like literally just like start tomorrow in that specialty, what would it be? The second.
L&D, 100% hands down. I have L&D nurse. I just saw a job a couple weeks ago. They were making 5,600 a week. I'm like, this 2024. Where are we getting this money from? But they're making 5,600.
You couldn't pay me to do L&D.
I did me neither.
Because the girls are pooping to give birth. And childbirth is a beautiful thing. Shout out to the moms. I love y'all and what y'all do. But that, and then also like, I mean, in postpartum, if you have floated massaging the front desk, I had to do that, and I have no idea what.
I floated a couple times during my staff job, and I was clueless. Didn't do it.
So do you feel like L&D because of the marketability and how much they can command for their pay?
Correct. That
Yeah.
and there is a nursing shortage, big time in L&D
Yeah.
that people don't realize.
Well, I think it's also because it takes so long to train L&D nurses. And I think a lot of times in nursing school and even on TikTok, there's a type of like idea that, L&D is soft nursing and you'll
Mhm.
hold babies. I don't, they didn't do L&D where I did my clinical because it was very much so ghetto.
I agree.
Yeah, it was very scary. Um, I thought that my first patient was gonna die. Like, yeah, like literally right in front of me, had to have an emergency C-section, and there was so much blood loss. And that's how I went from deciding I wanted to be a CRNA to like I was like, oh hell no, because even like the anesthesiologist who was in the room told me he like we had talked and chopped it up earlier. He had been a anesthesiologist for 20 plus years, and he was panicking. So I was like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. So it's a no for me.
I mean, if you like it, I love it, but it's not something that I could do.
Yeah. Do you feel like every nurse can do per diem nursing?
100%. You got the 2 years experience and you're comfortable in your setting, go for it.
But every nurse is not comfortable with change.
I agree.
And in order to do per diem, you have to be really comfortable,
I agree.
especially God forbid you in a place like Kaiser. Your roots every 4
Yes, I know it way too well.
the stress. Like imagine if you're in a place like Kaiser, like you have to be okay with being flexible,
Correct.
with being coachable,
Correct.
because they definitely will critique the hell out your notes.
Sure will.
But so you think every nurse with their experience can be a per diem nurse? They just have to have certain characteristics and traits.
I think every nurse has it. I think they just have to be put in that environment. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think within the 12-hour period that you're working, you somehow get into that flexibility or that adaptability at some point. So
Yeah.
I feel like it can come out of every nurse. You have to be put in that fire in order to
Yeah.
know.
Okay, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
Let's do it.
So, how do you think that you get the best pay as far as look when you look for contracts? Like, what are the things that you're looking for? What are your green flags? What are your red flags? Because you have to have a really good level of discernment
I agree.
in order to make 300K
Mhm.
in a year without unaliving yourself.
I agree.
I mean, cause she's saying she over here working overtime, but you're not working 7 days a week.
No, I'm not working 7 days.
So what's the tea with that?
My biggest red flag would be I asked the number one question that I asked before I even go into any further conversation is what's the cancellation rate at the hospitals? Because you got to remember, as a per diem nurse, I'm agency, so I'm at the lowest end of the totem pole. So as soon as the census drops,
First
as
thing.
soon exactly 100%. So I gotta know, like, are they canceling frequently or are they not? And as soon as I get past that, if sometimes the recruiters will lie and say, yeah, I don't cancel much just to get you in the door.
Mhm.
But as soon as I can kind of get a feeling of if I'm getting canceled 1, 2 shifts, I'm out. I don't stay as longer than I guess more than my welcome, should I say?
Yeah.
My biggest green flags is what are the weekends versus the night shift differential looking like? Because PRN nurses get that too.
Yeah.
That's why I was able to amass that much last year was because I was willing to work the shifts that nobody else works. So the night shifts on the weekends, I did that. Nurses don't want to do it.
Yes. Okay, okay. So what do you think makes a nurse know that they're ready to be a per diem nurse? Because the girls are not waiting 2 years anymore.
I agree.
They're waiting their 1 year and they're out. So it's like, kind of give us like an ICU, like, are you able to take the sickest patients? Are you able to run charge? Like,
Correct.
what things do you think people should be doing in order to be at a level where they're able to do per diem without being stressed or anxious on their shifts?
I would say if you come in and you take report and you see a patient on multiple drips, if you see a patient that's literally like 1 foot out the door, and you can work that whole 12-hour shift with minimal help,
Mhm.
you can do it.
Okay, okay. So, what advice going out would you give to any nurses or people who are interested in doing per diem and kind of maximizing their pay and getting the most flexible schedule that exists for nurses?
I would say to take advantage of non-compact licenses, which is I'm talking about New York, Massachusetts, Michigan, Illinois, California even, because those are the states that you wanna take a closer look to see where you get more competitive pay, where you're
Yeah.
getting better ratios, where the union is the strongest. So that way you have better resources, you have better help, and you're able to deliver better patient care. Take a look at those because that's where the money makers are.
Yeah, and those union states, they don't be playing them. Any advice going out, feel free to share your Instagram handles, share your resources. I know you have a community for nurses where you help them transition into being per diem and getting the same level of financial freedom and just freedom in general that you have that I know so many nurses aspire to.
Absolutely. On across all social media handles, I am per diem plug, PERDIEM plug. And essentially, yes, I have a community where I am teaching well over 200 nurses. I'm literally spoon feeding them the highest paying jobs in the country.
Period.
Next year, we're pivoting over to investing, saving, budgeting, credit. We're doing everything as far as PR and nursing is concerned because I want everybody to elevate. I want them to make more money, save more money, and build it.
So they ain't gotta be mad at you, talking about you make 300K. So, like, they could come and make it. This is it. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because we have a whole lot more tea to spill, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next episode. Mwah. Bye.